See what I'm saying? And that's okay, because that's when
I'm
you...
say, just imagine how much he learned from those 10 years of being in that train. See, yeah. It's the same with Bernadette. He used to get on the train 6 in the morning back in day. So you know how it is. You get up, you looking like, you probably won't get this food. Yeah. And then after about a week, you're like, where dude at? You know, and so now you looking for him. And so imagine how much you learn when you get in those situations.
Ready?
Yep. You ready?
Yep.
You let us know. You let me know when to go. I don't hear anything in my head.
Here you go. I need him some more. Just one more. There you go.
Hello, hello, hello. Good afternoon. We are coming to you from Cleveland, Ohio. This is Coffee, founder and host of BlackAnthropy, which is our new show devoted to having individuals, nonprofits, for-profits, and other entrepreneurs talk about the impact that they are having on the life of individuals, families, and communities by providing resources, knowledge, and inspiration. Uh, I'm a storyteller. I enjoy learning about people, what they do, why they do what they do, and how they came to do what they do. And so we're going to shine a black light on Mondays on nonprofit organizations and these individuals that have started these organizations that are making a difference in our communities. And as a journalist, I'm limited to about 800, maximum 1,500 words to tell these stories. And I'm like, these people's stories are so much bigger than that. And so I'm starting to invite them on BlackAnthropy. That's what led me to create BlackAnthropy, to let them tell their story in way more than 800 words. So I am so happy that after Black History Month, we're now in Women's History Month, Women's Month. And today I have two lovely guests who were gracious enough to join us. Alea Smith with Leah's Helping Hand. And Brittney Smith with P.E.A.R.L.S, which stands for Positively Empowering and Restoring Lady Self-Esteem. And so I'm going to start with you, Brittney. Please tell us about P.E.A.R.L.S, why you started it, and what your organization does.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having us on here. P.E.A.R.L.S began in 2020. Actually, to be honest, it was an idea that started in 2015. Um, I grew up in Cleveland, graduated from John Hay High School, and then went to Cleveland State University, worked at Harvey Rice. And so when I was at Harvey Rice doing family advocacy work, I saw like a lot of our girls were just constantly getting into it a lot, bickering and fighting. And so it was just a thought like, how can we create spaces for girls to coexist? And so when I look at coexisting, it's more so like, how do I coexist without loving myself? And so the whole idea was to try to teach girls to love themselves first and then pour that love into other girls specifically and people in general, so that we can show the world that we specifically as black girls and black women can get along. But sat on that idea for 5 years because of just fear. Didn't know if you had the right, everything wasn't together, if that makes sense. And so, when you feel like everything isn't together, you're scared to take the next step. 2020 came around. My friend created us a logo, which was so perfect. It has the afro, the girl with the afro and the P. And so that was really like a motivating factor for us to get started. She does consulting, and so she kind of helped set the vision. I set a date. I didn't have anything planned. I set a date for a launch and a fundraiser, and just invited people. When people started saying like, "Yeah, we'll be there," I didn't have a choice but to make a move. And so from there, we were able to raise like our first $2,000 and then kind of kick it off. So we started as a program um, to go inside of the schools. We had partnered with Franklin D. Roosevelt in Cleveland to do work in there. Um, we launched on March 8th, but the very next week, everything shut down due to the pandemic. So we weren't able to. But I still had the opportunity to go into that school and work with some of the girls just to kind of phase in what I like to do instead of just going to the school and saying, hey, sign up for this program. I really like to go in and build a bond with the students. But I didn't want to stop there. So I reached back out to those girls and said, hey, how do you all feel about like mentorship and leadership development? How do you all feel about it if we keep it going? And so they were 100% down with everything, and we kind of turned into more of a community-based organization. And so I like to call 2020 our like summer promo tour, if you will. We were going around. We did a lot of sessions outside. We did a lot of sessions in Third Space Action Lab right off 105. She was grateful enough to let us.
Evelyn Burnett and Mordecai. Yeah.
Shout out to them because they were so gracious enough to let us use their space from time to time to just be able to provide opportunities, especially during those times where kids just really didn't know what was going on and they didn't have the opportunity to do. And so with that, P.E.A.R.L.S essentially, the focus is on restoration and empowerment through a practical sense. And so we do like to push girls out there to really try to develop themselves by leadership development and community service. And so we do a lot of like connecting girls to different resources to help them with that. And so we focused on doing community-based sessions. We invited girls. You didn't have to sign up. You didn't have to apply. You just came, especially during those first 2 years, because again, we just wanted to be that space for girls to feel safe. And we know, again, going back to the point of like really making sure that girls are nurtured and be important to me, being from the inner city of Cleveland. It was very important for me to make sure that girls from the inner city specifically had a space where they felt okay, even though they may have came from a non-traditional background. Maybe they came from 44108 or whatever zip code, and trying to talk to them and saying like not letting that define you, not letting people define you just based on that environment, and knowing that you do have a lot to share with the world, no matter what. If you came from a 2-parent household or 1-parent household, if you came from St. Clair or Buckeye, like you can still show up and be the best version of yourself. And so all of our sessions pretty much were revolved around trying to nurture a whole girl from a holistic approach. So that was the first 2 years. In 2021, we then expanded the service to provide P.E.A.R.L.S Community Closet. So that was in 2021 in May. It was really kind of a spinoff of P.E.A.R.L.S and providing a safe space. We wanted to do more of a safe physical space as well. So P.E.R.L.S Community Closet was birthed. Shout out to Leah for using that word. Was birthed to be able to provide women and girls safe spaces to come and shop, to then contribute to how they feel about their physical selves, which can then in turn contribute to their internal too. You know how people say appearance is important and all of that good stuff. So P.E.R.L.S Community Closet was founded. We did a storefront on Fleet Avenue in the Slavic Village area in Cleveland. Everything we provide is free to the community. We work with community to collect donations and things like that, and then we sort through them. We have a process, and then we push it back out to the community for free. So that was in 2021. Shortly after we moved into Fleet, we were able to partner with Detroit Shoreway, CDC, and MyCom, who brought us over to the West Side to be essentially the resource center for that neighborhood, for Cleveland overall, but specifically for Ryan Crudell neighborhoods, things like that. And so shortly after that, we partnered with Cleveland Metropolitan School District to replicate the bigger store into 3 schools in Cleveland. So we're currently at A.B. Hart Elementary School, Harvey Rice Elementary School, and New Tech West High School, where the girls have the space to be able to go, girls and boys really, to go get hygiene items, clothing if they need it, for free. And so that kind of came from my social service background. I have a degree in social work, and so it was just a perfect opportunity to be able to create something, because I remember always getting families during my 9 to 5, and we couldn't send them in. We had to send them to the Malachi house, or they had to call 211, and it's like somebody's house just burnt down. We can't keep sending them to 5 different get a pair of pants. So then we just created this store, and we have so many donations. When we first put the call out, first promoted it, we had so many donations that we were able to expand it to women. So at first it was for tweens and teens, but then we got so much, and like we can let women shop too. So with that, we've been able to provide services for over 2,000 people with that closet service alone. And so now the focus is more so going back to um, programming and making sure girls are connected with the community. So community service is a huge thing that we're about to focus on this upcoming year, making sure girls are tied in and that they service and give back to the communities in which they come from. A lot of the girls that come from, so it's really getting girls to have that pride and community leadership development and all of that good stuff that we feel contributes to the skill sets that they have within that they may not know that they have.
Okay, thank you very much for that. That it's so important again to let the people who have made this decision to create their organization the way they want the community to know about it. And you learn so much more from letting Brittney talk about pearls rather than me trying to stuff that into an 800 or 1,500 word article. All of that very important information would not be in it. So again, that's what BlackAnthropy is about. And next up, we're going to have Leah do the same thing with Helping Hand. But Leah, I want you to make sure your introduction statement covers why it's helping hand in a diversity approach that you would use to setting up your organization. So we're gonna come back to a lot of the things that Brittney brought out. But talk about that for us.
Well, first and foremost, I want to say, Coffee, thank you for allowing me to add my enhanced flavor for starters. And it is great to sit next to who I know I'll be working with in the future, Brittney, because Franklin Roosevelt is one of my favorite schools to sub at. I love the environment, and Harvey Rice, I am there quite often. So I love the children, but to know I'm sitting next to someone who's also pouring positivity into the environment, I know that God put me on this mission for a reason. So I am the founder of Alea's Helping Hand, and we were birthed last year. God told me I was going to teach numbers to the community, and that's when it started. So I woke up maybe about a year ago, and I was like, let me call 5 great people, and I'm calling them great as that's what they are, as when I know that I can pick up the phone and say, hey, can I use your name? Because I got a vision, honey. God told me it was time. And they said, okay, what's that vision? I said, financial literacy. So they looked at me and was like, really? I'm like, yeah, you know what? Ain't nobody running through these doors. Like, teach me financial literacy. But because numbers is relatable to everyone, I said, we are going to impact, we are going to motivate, and we're going to teach these babies financial literacy. And I said, and guess what? They get me with it. Ooh, they get all this flavor. So I want to say shout out to Jerome Williams. You call him the gospel kid over at WOVU. I went into that radio station and he said, what you want? I said, a lot. And so I was like, you know what? I want to teach financial literacy. And that's because I have a diverse background. I was raised in different areas, Strongsville, Medina, Cleveland Heights. I had the opportunity to raise my family in Cleveland. And so with that, it's with me having my diverse background, my children were eligible to certain things that the Cleveland area wasn't privy to. And so with that lifestyle, I started looking around and was like, God, I can travel to Mayfield and all these other places and I can engage in these activities. And if we're going to, I'm going to teach my kids the culture and things like that. But I want it right here at home in my backyard. And so 20 years ago, I became a business owner. And it was a struggle because I'm like, I can go into other places. I can go to the next states like Indiana, Michigan, West Virginia, and I can make money and they embrace me with open arms. But why can't I play in my backyard? I don't mind traveling, but God said it was time. And when I looked at the environment and COVID came, He said the numbers was important and my timeline represented the significance of disasters, just feeling embarrassed and not having myself together, maybe becoming another statistic because I was a mother early on or because I lived in an area where they consider to be poverty. But I'm not a impoverished woman. I'm not poor. I'm not lacking. I'm not embarrassed. I'm educated and I'm here in the city, flat out. So it was like, okay. So when I went to sit to talk to Jerome, he said, well, who else do you have? I said, I have a few people in mind. And I said, and the good thing is we don't look alike. All of us look different. So that's where we're going to start is when they look at our board, they ain't going to be able to be like, well, y'all maybe be related. No, we are all from a diverse background. And equity, diversion, and inclusion was extremely important. And in order to represent that, as I had to first put it together. So I called a meeting with a few top people who are in the music industry and they have the nursing background, the lawyers, the librarians. We got a couple of those street hustlers that's educated. And I said, I'm teaching numbers. Are y'all going to help me? And they said, right on. And so that's what we did. And so a year later, I thank God to be able to sit here and say that Alea's Helping Hand has done wonders in the community. And we're teaching these children how to maintain, how to build, and how to keep the money right in their city. That you can go anywhere. If you can go anywhere and succeed, you can do it at home. And so that's what we did.
Okay. You hear that, young people? When you get 20, 30 years old, you're not going to have the excuse that nobody taught me this. I didn't know this. I didn't know where to find this information. We got Alea's Helping Hand right here in Cleveland. And one thing that I do want, people to think about is the services, the programs that Pearls and Leah's Helping Hand have. Some people are going to implement it right then and there. Some people it may take them a week. Some people it may take them a month. And some people it may take them 10 years. And that's why it's important to have these programs and do like Brittney and Leah are doing, getting these young people when they are young. Because can you imagine so many things that you've done when you were young that you never forgot? And these kids, these young people will have this to go back. She told me this. So, well, okay, I need to buy a house. So they do financial literacy, and I know she's saying something. There's a methodology for doing this. And then when you get 20 or 30, and you see a young lady struggling, Brittney, she started an organization to help women. So maybe I should do the same thing. So that's again what BlackAnthropy is about, is the awareness that these organizations exist, are providing these services, and they didn't start out with a perfect blueprint or platform. They just went with what was in their heart and in their spirit. And so, Brittney, one thing I want people to understand too is your background and how you came to do what you do. Because I don't want, people to think of any age. I don't want you to think that, well, I have to be perfect. I have to go to school like she did. I have to have gotten A's. I got to do this. I want people to understand when this is in you, you got to flesh it out. Brittney, go ahead. Please tell us about your background and the things that you learned and saw that really instilled in you. I'm going to do this.
And so, I try not to get emotional. But when you said that, the one thing that stuck to my mind is that God will definitely use the person that you don't expect. And so my life wasn't perfect at all. It wasn't terrible, but it wasn't perfect in the sense where, like, a lot of our young kids, and I thank Leah so much, and I know she's talking about me, but just to shout her out because those financial pieces are important And prevention is important too, so we don't have to intervene too much when they get older. So I wish I would have had a financial course when I was 10 or something, like that. But so no, you don't have to have everything in place, and those are the type of kids that we like to work with. We like to work with kids who might be a little bit rough around the edges, who society deems as they're impossible to do anything. My background, I grew up, my dad has always been in my life, but my dad and my mom wasn't married. I always tell them, like, you could have walked away in 1984, but you chose not to do that, and you've been around. I didn't graduate on time from college. That was a huge thing for me. It was very detrimental for a certain extent of time because I used to beat myself up because I looked at all of my colleagues who were moving and shaking, and I just didn't know what I wanted to do. I just bounced whatever I felt at the moment. That was my major. So if I felt like I looked cute, I was going into fashion. I started with a social work degree, but because people were saying, like a lot of our young people here today, social work, you're not gonna do this, you're gonna be heartbroken, you're gonna be depressed, you're gonna be broke, all of this stuff. It impacted me and made me change my major so many times that I kind of goofed around and didn't graduate when I needed to. And so with all of that, it kind of painted the picture. In my 20s, I thought I wasn't qualified enough to do anything. I thought you had to look a certain way. I thought you had to be a certain way. I thought you had to be educated to this degree or whatnot to do anything. But then when I realized when you start stepping in that power that God has already given you, um, there's nothing that can stop you. And if He says that it's okay, and if He's for you, nobody else
And trust it.
can be against you, and He'll use you to impact lives. And that's the thing I want to tell anybody. Like, your life doesn't have to, life is such a beautiful and difficult and crazy and lovely journey. And it's not meant for everybody's to look the same. We all have a story. And so that story is going to help motivate you to tell or to impact somebody else. And so the work that we're doing, it comes from something, you know, for, to help us to be able to tell the story through these pieces of art that is our organization for that. And so I'm very grateful that I really don't have any regrets now that I've been able to do the work and say, nobody's perfect. Everybody makes mistakes and things like that. So there's no reason for me to sit and shame myself or stay in the victim mentality because of some mistakes that I've made in the past. And I want girls to understand that too. Whether you be a younger, teenage mom or maybe you didn't get the best grades in school, it's never too late. Even at 70 years old, it's never too late to change the trajectory of your life. So.
And I wasn't in this context. It was a slightly different, but I had a boyfriend who was the love of my life, and I remember years later he said, "Why did you let me mess up my life?" And I told him, "You didn't mess up your life. That's why it's just called life." And so when you can get to that point, like you're saying, you know, you didn't do the things that you wanted and saw other people doing, but now you got that confidence that for whatever reason, that wasn't my path, right? And you found your path. And that's what, again, is so key and so important with what these nonprofit organizations created by and founded by Black people are doing. It's showing you that, this was in my spirit all along. And, it whether I wanted to or not, it was going to get flushed out. And so, Leah, would you please do the same thing? Talk about your background and, how you came to start Leah's Helping Hand.
Well, before I say that, I want to say to you, Brittney, I empower you. And I'm sitting here looking at you as you are beautiful and phenomenal. And not just that, we have to celebrate that it is National Women's History Month. You broke ground when you came up with that idea, when you decided to birth it. And living in your purpose looks great on you for starters. And you better keep walking in it. And every woman in here that's sitting with me, and any woman under the sound of my voice, as you said, no regrets, you gotta live just like that. Because you weren't supposed to do it then. You did it right when you were supposed to. If you would have done it before COVID, no one would know. As you came right on time. So I actually Alea's helping hand again was birth. This was my last baby, right? I only have 2 children of my own, but I own multiple businesses. I became an entrepreneur at an early age of 12. And I remember my mother, she dated my little sister father, rest in peace. He was a mobile mechanic. And I remember because I stayed in trouble, okay, I was always into things inquisitive, like, nevertheless, I always stayed on punishment because I failed math. So every year, you can tell, like, summertime, I was in the window looking outside crying because I wanted to play with other kids, but I was on punishment. So my punishment, I decided would be I would go to work with my mother's boyfriend. That was my punishment. So if I was going to be mad, I was going to be mad trying to make some money. So he would take me to work, and at this particular time, I would be responsible every morning for making sure all of the customers' invoices had their names, addresses, phone numbers. Because he was a mobile mechanic, I had to make sure I had to call and get the mileage. And so I remember probably about 7, 8, early on, learning to talk to people and call and say, I'm calling on behalf of, I messed that line up a lot of times, but nevertheless, every summer now I become acclimated because I knew I was going to mess up in math. I wasn't good at it. And nobody had the time to teach me. So even with all the teachers and the tutor and just the systems that were in place, they weren't designed for someone of my thinking. They were designed based on a paradigm. This is what everyone would think. Well, I don't think like everyone. So none of the methods were working outside of the basic addition and subtraction. Okay. I excelled in all of my other classes, but math was just like, I wasn't making it, and I wasn't going to sit in class and copy. So I learned through the mobile mechanic that, math and numbers. So that's how I was able to connect it. Nevertheless, I like doing hair. Started my own hair business by age of 9. I was braiding everybody here in the neighborhood. By the time I was 12, I was able to have a residual income. I didn't know at that time it was a residual income, but a lot of my friends would be like, I got to go make some money this summer. And I'd be looking around like, I've been doing hair all year round. I guess I don't know what I'm going to do. Maybe I'll just do your hair. So as life just continued through the journey, when it was my emancipation was me birthing my son into the world. And I'll say it was my emancipation because no one told me, that numbers was what I was going to eat. No one told me that the significance of his date of birth would change my life forever. I knew that I was no longer going to just be living for me, that I was going to have to live for this son as well. And he came into the world early, 28 weeks, right? And so anyone who carried full term is 40, and I don't even know what it's like to get past the 28 with neither one of my children. Oh, wow. So here it is when I started taking a look at the timeline of my life and different things that I began to see the same numbers. It was a 2, a 8, a 6, or something that was relevant. And so after COVID, and I was just praying and asking God, like, God, I know I got a purpose every day. What was it going to be? And it was these numbers. So when I looked at my timeline and I made those calls, and then I began to take a look at everyone else, as we all could say that we had one thing in common, and that was numbers. Either it was a date of birth or it was a significance of a date that we did something together, someone marked history. We all had numbers in common. And so how could I not sit down at the table with people who have things in common like me? And if I could sit down and I could begin to hear those stories, and a lot of the time, because people's personal lives, finances, first and foremost, let me say this, is very unique. They're like, I don't have what I need, and they're embarrassed. Like, I'm making thousands of dollars, but Alea, I don't see none of my money. And so with my background, let's just say this, I have a bachelor's in business management. I was in the medical field, and I'm also a licensed life and health insurance agent. I also get to help people upskill their business and help you grow, and I can make a capability statement and write you a resume and a business plan. But what does it relate to at the end of the day? Numbers, money. That's what people want when they sit down. So I started talking to people, and they're like, at the end of the conversation, you don't want no money? It's like, I do, but we're going to get to that part. First, we got to straighten out these numbers. and find out what it means to you. And this is what I got a chance to sit down with people in business. As you have people running these $1 million corporations and they don't understand the numbers. They don't even know because why? They've hired someone who can figure it out. And because she looked good or he looked good on paper, and I don't want to offend anybody, he, she, they, them, okay? They look good on paper as you are qualified, right? But then it also boiled down to who can I put in the newspaper that's gonna look good to represent? And it didn't always look like somebody like me. So I had to figure out a way to be able to break that barrier and start sitting down and having real conversations and saying, sis, now you know over the weekend, girl, you was negative on Friday, you spent all that money, you negative today. Why would you put yourself back like that? And it wasn't like I'm saying this to offend you. It was like, let's sit down and talk about reality. Tomorrow's not promised to you. And then if you have a family, but most importantly, what type of example are you setting for your children who's looking to be like, mommy was just saying we ain't have no money, but over the weekend we did all of these things, right? So then I started thinking, I was like, oh, that's difficult. You talking about a conversation that is difficult. That is one having one with adults. So I realized that okay, if adults wouldn't be transparent and they didn't want to talk to me if they felt like I was impeding, like now you're going into uncharted territories. All right, fine. Send me your children. I love them.
Yeah.
And so God said, you going to do that? And then opportunity came along and said, well, maybe you'll take your background since it is so diverse and you become a substitute teacher. Let's put you in the classroom because we know outside of it, the children will flock to you. Let's put you in the classroom and see how you excel. And that's when I began to learn that these kids was like, well, our teacher don't teach us anything. What are you going to teach us? And so I start asking the question. The first thing I want to ask is at 7 o'clock in the morning, I do not want to be
Let's hold
upset.
on. We're gonna come back to that because your program and the connection you have established with the young people that you work with is very inspirational, and I want to come back to that and have you talk about that separately because what I want you all, what I'd like for you ladies to do now is talk about your programs because again, when you create these organizations, you all aren't going and looking at a blueprint and saying, okay, you're supposed to do this, and then you're supposed to do this and this. You all are saying, this is what I want to do, this is what I feel a need for, and then talk about how you go from creating a program, and like you started out, Brittney, saying, well, we started doing this, but then we did this, and then we did this, and then you bring it back. Because operating a nonprofit organization can get very overwhelming because you're trying to save the world and you realize, and that's why it was very important when you said that we came back. Because you've got to be, in order to stay on that path, talk about starting programs and how you came up with them. And a big thing that I've again noticed in meeting and interviewing different people about their business or what they do is the nonprofit organizations, particularly ones created by Black people, they mold it to fit what the community needs rather than pull out a check sheet and say, okay, sorry, you don't meet it. And then, like you said, people house burned down, whatever happened, and you're referring them to all these different places. So talk about creating programs to help the community. No, you go ahead, Brittney.
Okay. So yeah, it's not easy at all. And so what I've learned is like finally this year, being the third year, is like giving myself grace. Because in all honesty, I have moved around trying to figure out like what makes sense. The one thing that I know from my heart is that I want P.E.A.R.L.S to be youth voice centered and solution focused. So I'm not a person about talking. So I'm very much like action oriented. I get kind of fed up with a lot of us who sit around the table and talk all day. That's great. We know what some of the issues are, but so what is the action plan? And so with that, we want to be able to provide impactful and engaging solutions to young people, but with them at the table. And so being blessed to still have those same girls from FDR, seeing them now as juniors at John Hay, and we just celebrated them at our birthday party last week. Watching them grow and then bringing them back to the table to say, hey, possibly serving as like youth advisory or something like that because I don't want to give all of the answers. I'm 38, 38 and 18 and 16 is different. So I want to be able to put them in position. And that's essentially what it is moving forward now is like working with different organizations and things like that, different partners, women who want to facilitate. That's something that I've had to learn like within these past 3 years. Um, is taking a step back because this is your baby and you birthed it and I'm very selective with who I work with and things like that too. So, but now I'm coming into a space where I'm like, I don't have to do everything, and now I really don't. I want to still be a part of it, but I don't want to do. I want to give women a chance who want to be in front of these girls, who want to facilitate different sessions and things like that, passing the baton to them and setting them up so that they can live out a dream. There's so many women out there that want to get in front of girls, but they feel like they don't have enough to be able to impact these girls. And I'm like, that's not true. You have you, because most times these kids just want you to be consistent and they want you to be present. You don't necessarily have to have a degree from Harvard and a Mercedes Benz to be able to go and impact these children. They just want to know that you're there and that you care. And they can sense it if you do or if you don't. And so when I talk to women, like last year we did, so we do community-based sessions now, and then we have the closet, and then we have school programming too. So I look at P.E.A.R.L.S now as like a movement. I don't even call it a program anymore. We're a whole movement of an organization to provide solutions to young people. Last year we did a wonderful session called The Shade is Real. The Shade is Real talked about the complexities of skin complexion. So we had two women who wanted to do work with girls. I gave them the vision, told them this is what I would like to see. This is the homework that I want you all to do, and this is the layout. They came up with the activities and all that good stuff. I kind of sat in the back and let them do their thing. We had women and girls there in tears, just talking about good tears of joy and whatnot, talking about their experiences and how grateful they are just to come together to talk about being brown skin, being light skin, being in between, and how we can change the narrative in our community to uplift each other as beautiful black and brown women. And so that's essentially what we're doing is providing those safe spaces for girls and women to come together to nurture each other. And it hasn't been easy, but it has been worth it, definitely. When you see like these girls growing up and you go into the schools and stuff like that and they remember the things that you said and even going back to my mentees, that first cohort from FDR who were 8th graders and still rocking with me 3 years later, that's what makes you want to keep going. So
Leah, can you tell us about your program, the difference that you've seen, that you hear working, your programs in the schools, and how you came to decide, though these are programs that Leah's Helping Hand is going to roll out and implement?
Yes, definitely. Again, and I'm sitting here in awe, honestly, to hear such great work. Again, I love FDR and the environment, so to know that you're there is a great pleasure because it's taking a look just in that environment. A lot of those children, and we talk about emotions and feelings. One of the ways that we identify or we learn again, because finances is unique to everyone, and they say that 89% of the world does not obtain financial literacy. So you have that very small 11%. Who is it going to be? Well, you begin to form your money habits by the age of 6. And so when you think about the age of 6, what were you doing at that time? A lot of the times when I go in as a sub, sometimes I know that maybe I did elect, because it is 11, I can go in and choose. Maybe I'm supposed to teach 1 through 3, but the principal could very well change it because she sees me as being a better fit for another age group. And the one thing that I don't do is I don't fight against it because it allows me to expand and allows me to be able to learn. But one thing that I love is meeting the children where they're at. So I never go in, as I very well may have the intentions that I want to talk to them about numbers And I don't always have a game plan for going in, but through the conversation and through the relationship and bond, see, what I know is relationships can get me through doors that money will never open. And so I learned that if I learn to begin to bond and talk with these children, not talk at them as they begin to develop a bond. And it's not right out the gate of, well, you gotta trust me. It's let's play an icebreaker. And you learn who I am and I learn who you are. And the one thing, as I was stating, I love the early morning shift. I'm an early person. So you can catch me at the gym probably about 5:30. If I gotta be at school by 7, like I done did my meditating and when I'm going in at 7 a.m. I want to know, how did you wake up on the other side of the bed? For starters, I mean, you hear it cliche, like I didn't wake up with you, but I want to know, how did you wake up on the other side of the bed? So let's identify with your emotions. And one way that we get through or break through is we talk about the wheel of emotions, is it signifies or has different colors, orange and yellow, greens and purple. And if I have a favorite kid, which I don't, but if I have a kid that I know particularly draws to me, I'll say, what's your color today? And they'll be able to, that's our conversation. They can talk to me if they've had an experience and they know what I'm looking for, and they'll be like, maybe I'm yellow, like what's your color? I get a lot of these kids that be like, Miss L, what's your color? How do you identify? Can I, let me be with your color. How did you get like that? And then that starts the report, because sometimes the teacher don't always leave a lesson plan. And I had to figure out a way to improvise, as I'm not just going to take up space and you do whatever. Like, let's get down to some things. And when you leave here, you can go out into the world and you can produce. So our programs, even those dealing with numbers, as you learn, because everyone has their own unique relationship, how can I meet them where they are? And so that's important. And if I'm talking to a student who, maybe they are having a rough time at home and they don't know exactly why maybe there's no water and they just know they woke up and there wasn't anything. Well, as being the teacher or being the one today, how can I help? Do you need an extra 5 minutes? Because that is not an excuse, but that's a paradigm shift, and it allows vulnerability not only for that student but for that adult. And so sometimes I'm positioned, but I do have to understand that my emotions can't rule me. I have to think and I have to improvise, but I also have to position this child to be better, to push past that circumstance. So
right.
When you can build on your mental and you can have someone say, hey, I know that right now it doesn't look as good, but if you step over here for a second and just give me a couple minutes, I can help you with that shift. So that's that mental mindset. That's one thing we focus on. Because we don't never focus on telling the youth that you gotta go get a job. No, what's your desires? What's your love? Is you should get paid for it. If you woke up this morning and all you want to do is play video games, well, how do we capitalize on that? As you can now go and obtain a degree to become a programmer or a gamer, and you can sit somewhere and test and make tons of money. You don't have to go hit the curb or the block. You ain't got to sell anything out the house. You figure out how to take that passion and you make the money off of it. What does that look like? And that is a real question. So when I begin to ask the questions, I get response, like real response.
Yep.
And it allows the vulnerability for things.
Okay, the last thing I want to get into real quick is I think that this is very important to a very important component of BlackAnthropy, which is we've listened to Brittney and Leah talk about the nonprofit, but the other thing too is they also have their own for-profit businesses, and so again, when you have that passion to do something, how do you have it where you put all your energy into that and learn and grow from that rather than thinking that you need to go and get a job to work for someone else? Because when you have your own nonprofit and your own for profit, you don't have time to go make somebody else more money or somebody else's life fuller. So, Brittney, let's go with you in 2 minutes. Please talk about having your own for-profit business, but also having your nonprofit as something very important to you.
So again, thank you for the opportunity. So in all honesty, I'm still learning. So I have a for-profit called Girl and Co. LLC. So what I do is just me, is I do a lot of consulting. So I just got my first contract last year. So I'm really still kind of learning what that looks like and how to build it and make sure that the structure makes sense. So with the contract, we work to help like with youth development and community development, which is something that I love to do. Really trying to focus in on helping youth have pride in their communities, and then from there developing different small groups to kind of help tackle issues, because again, I'm very much a person that's about action. So getting kids to use their voices, to have pride in their communities or whatnot, and then going back and then maybe giving those results and that feedback to community leaders or uh, politicians and things like that, and then holding them to the fire with providing results. So we've been able to, we just work with MyCom. Last year was one of my favorite organizations to work with, to help with that work. And so from there is still using that platform to be able to provide different organizations to help learn about youth development um, and community development, and tying the two, and really giving the youth the opportunity to say what they want changing when it comes to their community. We were able to go to DC to advocate for young people through the Mentor Summit in Washington, D.C. And so I was able to have a conversation with Chantel Brown, legislative staff, and Sheriff Brown. Did I say Chantel Brown?
Mm-hmm.
That's okay.
Yes.
I wanted to make sure. Their staff and to advocate for young people. So really using the platforms to impact change and to make sure that we're providing real solutions to. So it's been interesting because I've been able to really combine the two, P.E.A.R.L.S and growth, because it's really both of them are youth focused. But with that, still trying to understand. I think one of the things I've heard not too long ago from a YouTuber was pretty much like, we were so quick to jump in business, but we don't have the business mindset. And so a lot of us, and I'm gonna give Black organizations grace because we weren't taught a lot, especially if you went to Cleveland schools, no shade or anything like that, but we didn't get business classes. You had to go to college to get those classes. So we didn't learn a lot about how to structure a business properly. And in all honesty, a lot of us are still trying to understand what that looks like. If it wasn't for organizations like Jumpstart and all those businesses that help us with classes. So say all that to say, I'm still learning.
Okay. Leah, we got about a minute. Can you give us
Yes.
real quick?
Yes, I can. I could just say that based on, I do have a business background, as these are some of the things I implement in the course with the youth, is teaching them the structure.
What's your for-profit business?
So my for-profit business is, I own a janitorial services called Living Matters. It's been in the community now 20 years. We operate in 5 different states. One of the ways that I am able to keep the balance is I schedule my priorities. So I take a look at what I have on the board, what's important to me, and which way I want to move. And I'm able to schedule the priorities. So that means if I need to manage all of the businesses in one day, as I like to start early again, I'm up at 5 and I get a chance to get a head start so that I can see what my day looks like. If I lapse or I overlap or something, I still allow myself enough time. And so those are some of the things also that I'm able to talk to the youth about, as well as we've partnered with First Federal Lakewood. So I want to give a shout out to them. I actually went in one day and I was just like, this vision was so amazing that I was like, branch manager, you should talk to me right now. And she was like, I will. And at first it was like, I hear so many different things, but she really believed in the dream. So I want to say thank you, Shalana Williams, First Federal Lakewood, for listening to me, and then my board members. And then other than that, I just keep it rolling because every day is different.
Now, real quick, Brittney, please tell people where they can find you online and on social media, and if you have a physical location.
Yeah, so our closet is located in the Detroit Shoreway area in Cleveland, so that's 6516 Detroit Avenue, Cleveland 44102. You can visit our website at www.clevelandpearls.org, and we are on IG at 216_flypearls.
And then Leah?
Yes, as a matter of fact, we are teaching classes now at Queen IM, so shout out to them. And we're also at the Friendly Inn Settlement. You can find us on IG at Alea's Helping Hand, or you can hit me up. It's financial_legacy_Leah. And you can also visit our webpage at www.aleashelpinghand.vision.
All right, thank you all so much for being on the show, and that's it for BlackAnthropy today. We'll be back with some more individuals, nonprofits, for-profits, talking about how they're impacting our community.
Thank you so much, and I'm looking forward to seeing you again.
All right, thank you. Take care, everyone. Deuces.
Thank you. That was amazing. Thank you. I appreciate that.
I like the way you all talk about your, like I said, 800 words. You know, much that is about.
I hope I didn't talk too much. Thank you.
Rambling. I'm sorry. No.
But that's, you know, hey, I don't want it to be structured like that. I don't want to give you a script on this.
Thank you. Definitely send me the link. It was a pleasure. Yes. Thank you so much for having us. Definitely. I want to
y'all gotta come back.
I would love to come back.
Yeah, I think I want to do something for Christmas or something like that. We
Definitely.
talking about that.
I
We'll
would
do
love
something
to
like
come
that
back.
because that's the whole point of it too. Is, you know, I don't want it where, you know, like a news story.
We
Leave it behind.
Yeah.
You know, what are you continuing to do? You know,
Right.
continue.
Brittney.
What's
Y'all
up,
take a
Coach?
picture?
Yes.
Ah, he ain't in here. Hey there, nice to see you. Hey, what you up to?
It's still the same thing. It don't matter if you do the same. It's still an impact. You gotta be. I had about being able to make an impact in the one even intended. Because if you ever reduce the line of good, they realize